now we've got two Democratic debates 2 nights in a row. And I think one of the more amazing things is Hillary Clinton kind of melting down and calling Bernie Sanders accusing him of an artful smear of her campaign. And she goes on and gets angrier and angrier and angrier. And, you know, one of the big questions that is in this campaign is whether or not the FBI will go forward with a criminal referral as it relates to the emails. We know that there are dozens that have been top secret or SAP, special access programs, which is beyond top secret. We know that methods and people's names have been disclosed in this, and it's so sensitive and so secure that she has put people's lives in jeopardy. Now, what's the FBI going to do? Jay Sekulow is the chief counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, and his book, Undemocratic, just released in paperback. Danielle McLaughlin is an attorney, constitutional expert, political commentator. Welcome, both of you, to the program.
Thanks, Sean.
You know, when I read this from a criminal referral standpoint, it seems to me that the law is clear. It seems to me that the evidence is incontrovertible. And it seems that James Comey, the FBI director, really would have no other option, considering other people have been prosecuted for far less than to make a criminal referral in this case, Jay.
Well, the evidence that we just know about, which is the leaks of the email or the emails that have been released to the public, show the nature and seriousness of what's happened here. And when I was a government lawyer, the way it worked was I'd work with the agents. The agents would put together the case, and I would then, in my office, at Chief Counsel's Office for Treasury, we would put together what was called, as exactly what you called it, a CRL, a criminal reference letter, over to the Department of Justice saying, we think the elements of the crime are here. Here's the evidence. Our recommendation is seeking criminal prosecution. Now, James Comey is a straight-up guy, and I've known Jim Comey for 15 years, and he is one that has got a tremendous amount of integrity. So the question's going to become here when his agents recommend if they do in fact recommend, which I suspect that's what's going on right now, is a recommendation of a criminal prosecution, will he take that to the Attorney General? I think the answer to that is yes. The next question is, what does the Attorney General do with it? And that becomes the political question, and I suspect the Obama administration will do everything they can, right now anyways, to not bring that. Because some of those emails, exchanges on the private email, were between the president and Hillary Clinton.
How many laws do you see broken here, and wouldn't each separate email represent a separate felony count?
Yeah, so Rudy, we've talked with Rudy Giuliani, as you have, and I think 16 is probably the number. But, yes, it's multiple counts every time there's a breach. Now, what Hillary Clinton's trying to do, her defense now is these are post hoc changes to the classification. That's her defense. But in reality, that is not a defense because they're trained to what to look for in a particular piece of document. But those SAP ones, those special access projects, you can't even give those to members of Congress that have security clearances. So I think it's a multiple count indictment. It would be very serious. The politics of it, are going to be the big issue of the day. I don't think the hard part here is the criminality. I think the more difficult part is getting the Department of Justice, to actually bring a cause of action.
So what if they recommend a criminal referral and the Justice Department sits on its hands for political reasons? What happens then?
I think you'll have a Listen, James Comey's the kind of guy that could resign over it, and he will not be the only one, I suspect, that they would say, you know what, this is politics, it's wrong, it's equal justice under the law, that's not the way our system is supposed to work, and I could see career agents and lawyers saying enough, we're done. I mean, Will that happen? We'll find out, but I think that is a possibility, and I think the administration's weighing all of that.
Danielle, how do you see this as an attorney?
Thanks very much, Sean. Hey, Jay, how are you doing? So I have been on the other side, and am currently on the other side. I do a lot of white-collar work on the defense side. And there's a lot of what Jay says that I agree with, and I think there are certainly concerns that we need to focus on here. I will say that there are three things I would like to talk about: intent, proportionality, and focus. So the first thing is, obviously, there are 30,000 emails with a handful more that are still going to come out. Of those, we know that post hoc 5 were designated as confidential. And yes, less than 0.1 of 1%, less than 0.1 of 1% were marked either top secret or post hoc designated secret or top secret.
What about those we're at a higher level, which is SAP classification?
Right. Well, and I understand there are those, and there are also the Obama emails, which are likely protected by executive privilege or other such privileges here. I think the issue here is with the server.
Wait a minute, but the Obama recognition of 18 Obama emails tells us that Obama, when he said, "Oh, I didn't know she had this private email, like, I learned it through the press," that means he was lying, doesn't it?
I don't think it means he was lying at all. I suspect that the president gets hundreds and hundreds of emails a day. Whether he saw the Clinton email dot.
No, I don't think the president actually.
I couldn't say.
The president doesn't get hundreds of emails a day because he has one BlackBerry with very few people that have his email address.
I mean, frankly, no one at state seemed to know this, so the idea that the president would know and was lying about this, I find a little bit hard to believe. What was happening here was state took some emails, got some emails obviously originally from Hillary Clinton as it related to Benghazi, saw that they actually didn't have a lot of her emails on state.gov servers, and then asked her and obviously a number of other former secretaries of state to be sent to produce emails to them so that they could review them and obviously have them stored for posterity and obviously for national security reasons. People have made comparisons with the Petraeus case. I think that we can have a conversation about that, but I think there are some very distinct differences. Certainly, General Petraeus, knowing that a lot of the information in his notebooks was top secret, not only kept those notebooks in an unsecured location in his home, but gave them to a biographer. And you've got to look here.
Well, what about Robert Gates suggesting that he believes Vladimir Putin and the Germans and maybe even the Iranian mullahs hacked into her server and have all these emails?
I couldn't say that was happening or wasn't happening. You know, you or I currently, as Jay had indicated, we don't have that information yet. If that happened, that is absolutely a problem. I'm going to have no credibility with you if I defend this in a way that isn't in keeping with what the law says.
But the reality is having a private server,
right,
and having top secret information on it is in and of itself a crime.
And that's the part that's getting. I think because the emails, when you had the SAP information on there, reached such a level that all the focus has gone there, which is understandable in the public light. Look with these emails, the security clearance necessary to have access to these emails. But we can't forget the fact that the email server was an unsecured server. It was not controlled by the State Department. It wasn't even secured. And when you look at the situation where you're a private contractor, anybody could have had access to these emails. So the criminality, in my mind, and Daniel brings up points that are important here, but the criminality has to be the link between all of this, not just you look at the facts in the totality of circumstances in a criminal case. I was a prosecutor. I was also a defense lawyer. I mean, I do more defense now than I do prosecution, obviously. Although I am representing, to be fully disclosure, I'm representing the state of Georgia in a case involving a criminal case where I'm representing the state. But the fact is that when you've got a situation like this and you look at what has happened, both the lack of the security of the server and the emails that were going back and forth and the open access to those emails, that's what has these agents digging deep. Now, what's also interesting, though, is we have no indication right now that Senator Clinton, Secretary of State Clinton, has in fact been interviewed by the FBI. And that's something that no one's been able to come forward with. That would be a telling sign. Now, she may take the fifth. If I was advising Danielle, I'd probably tell her to take the fifth. Yeah, and so that's probably what would happen. But it'd be interesting if they've done that. But, Sean, I think the reality here is that the cloud of this issue hurt her in the primary stage. In other words, in the fight with Bernie Sanders, is this an issue or is this a general election issue? And in the primary stage, Bernie Sanders' great challenge coming up is going to be they go to the South. And you and I both lived in Atlanta. We've lived in the South before. And you and I both know that democratic socialism, even with Democrats in the South, isn't going to sell. So she kind of gets, I think she gets the nomination that way. The question is, if this is hanging over her head in a general election, my goodness, the danger of that could be, for the Democrats, could be breathtaking.
I mean, Jay, to your point, I agree with you, and I think there's been some criticism of her as it relates to the idea that she wants to minimize this or drag this out. But it's not in her interest at all to drag this out. So she has been on the stage twice in New Hampshire in the last week. She has repeatedly says, release all the emails. I want all the emails to be released. And so I think we have to give her credit for at least saying that she does believe that, and I can't not credit her sincerity, that she did not believe that she was breaking any law. And
can I just say something? Wait a minute. She erased on her own 30,000 emails.
Her private emails.
Whoa. She said they were about yoga. And she said that they were about her daughter's wedding, her mother's funeral, and email correspondence with her husband, Bill, who doesn't use email.
Right, and I think, Joe, you'll agree with me. In this kind of a process, when you're responding to a subpoena or some other request from the government, you and your own attorneys are the first line in terms of deciding what is relevant and what is not, unless you're being raided or unless there is a real concern and you're not cooperating.
But they did ask for the server. But Danielle, they did. The FBI wanted the server. They demanded the server to be produced. So they were concerned about what was happening with the documents. And it's easy for Hillary Clinton to say, I want all the documents released, knowing full well all the documents can't be released. Because you can't release all the documents. Yeah, because now I do agree that the timing of this is to her interest, Sean, is get this over with as soon as you can. Dragging this out does not help her, because if this is a general election and this is hanging over her head, she loses, and so do the Democrats. So then the political question is, what hurts the Obama legacy more? Having his former Secretary of State indicted, or telling the FBI we're not going to prosecute? That really becomes the political question.
I think we also need to be aware here, and that there is a range of possibilities here. We can't. The three of us sitting here talking, we can't be sure that there will be a criminal indictment. We can't be sure. We're not the decision makers. The FBI are not the decision makers. The FBI cannot indict. The FBI cannot convene a grand jury. The FBI works with.
But Danielle, I don't want to interrupt you, but we know that she had an unsecured server. We know that that's against the law to have classified information on it. We know what the Inspector General for the Intelligence Department has said about the SAP classification, which is above top secret. So we know laws have been broken. The evidence seems incontrovertible and overwhelming.
I think this comes to prosecutorial discretion in some respects. I also think that we have to be mindful of the sort of systemic problems that appears to have happened at state. So February 3rd, we see this new letter from OIG, from Steve Linick, indicating that, secret and confidential information had been found in emails from both Secretaries Rice and Powell that was not aware of. And obviously those folks it's a long, long time since they were in that office. So I think there's a number of things going on here, but I think we can't ignore that there is a systemic problem.
Yeah, but there was also a law change post Secretary of State Powell and Secretary of State Rice. There was a law change here on the nature of the servers and the nature of how you maintain security and maintain access to these emails. And the wiping out of the emails raises that question. And you know what is fascinating to me, Sean, in this is, and this is the difficulty, is if, in fact, Hillary Clinton were to lose, say, South Carolina, and her political inevitability is kind of, that veneer's gone, well, then it's a lot easier to have a scenario where you let the indictment go if, in fact, there's an indictment, because if the campaign's still going on. But my suspicion is that the politics of this are going to just outplay the legal. I really think that's how it comes down.
All right, guys.
It's unfortunate, but that's how it's going to come down.
Yeah.
Time will tell.
Well, and I got to tell you, either way, I think it's a hit for the Democrats, big time.
Yeah, it is. And I wrote 2 chapters in the new Undemocratic, the paperback, on the Hillary Clinton emails, because I do think it's that big of a deal.
Yep. All right, guys, thank you very much. Thanks. Really appreciate it. Jay Sekulow, Danielle, thank you for being with us.